The first rays of sunlight slowly crept through the thick golden curtains of Kensington Palace as Catherine, Princess of Wales, quietly opened the door to her eldest son's bedroom. Prince George was still fast asleep, his dark hair messy against the white pillow. Catherine sat gently on the edge of his bed and softly shook his shoulder. "Good morning, sweetheart. Today is a very special day," she whispered with a warm smile. George rubbed his sleepy eyes and looked up at his mother. Even at 8 years old, he could sense that something important was happening. The palace felt different this morning. There were more people moving around than usual, and everyone seemed to speak in hushed, excited tones. Catherine had been awake since 5 in the morning. She had spent the early hours going over every detail of the day ahead. Today was King Charles II's coronation, and the whole world would be watching. As she helped George get dressed in his special ceremonial outfit, she explained in simple words what would happen during the day. "Grandpa Charles is becoming the king today, and we will all be there to support him," she said while straightening George's collar. "Many people from all over the world will be watching us, so we need to be on our best behavior." Down the hallway, Princess Charlotte was already awake in her room. At 7 years old, she was naturally excited about wearing her beautiful new dress. She had been looking forward to this day for weeks, constantly asking her mother about what would happen and who would be there. Charlotte loved big events and enjoyed meeting new people. William, Prince of Wales, was in his dressing room, carefully putting on his ceremonial uniform. The uniform was heavy with gold braiding and medals that told the story of his family's long history of service. As he looked at himself in the mirror, he thought about his father and how proud he was of him. Today would mark the beginning of a new chapter for their family and for Britain. He walked to 5-year-old Prince Louis's room to help him get ready. Louis was the most unpredictable of the 3 children. Sometimes he was perfectly behaved, and other times he was full of energy and mischief. William hoped that today would be one of Louis's good days. "Daddy, why do I have to wear these fancy clothes?" Louis asked as William helped him into his outfit. "Because today is Grandpa's big day, and we want to look our best for him," William explained patiently. "Just like when you dress up for your birthday party." The family gathered in their private dining room for breakfast. The room was filled with the smell of fresh flowers that had been arranged specially for the day. The children chatted excitedly about what they would see and do. Catherine and William answered their questions while trying to eat their own breakfast. "Will there be lots of people there?" Charlotte asked. "Yes, many people," Catherine replied. "Some will be inside the church with us, and many more will be outside on the streets." "Can we wave to them?" George wanted to know. "Of course," William said. "People have come from far away just to see this special day." The palace staff moved quietly around them, making final preparations. The head butler came in to inform William and Catherine that their car would be ready in 30 minutes. Everything had been planned down to the smallest detail, but Catherine still felt butterflies in her stomach. She looked at her 3 children sitting at the breakfast table, and her heart filled with love and pride. They looked so grown up in their formal clothes, yet they were still just children. She wanted them to remember this day forever, but she also wanted them to enjoy it without feeling too much pressure. As they finished breakfast, Catherine gathered her children around her. "Remember, today we are representing our family and our country. But most importantly, we are there to support Grandpa Charles. Let's make him proud." The children nodded seriously, understanding that this was no ordinary day. Outside, they could already hear the distant sounds of crowds gathering and police sirens as security preparations continued. The historic day was about to begin, and the Wales family was ready to play their part in this momentous occasion that would be remembered for generations to come. The golden carriage rolled slowly through the busy streets of London. Inside, William and Catherine sat with their 3 children, watching the incredible sight outside their windows. Thousands and thousands of people lined every street, waving flags and cheering loudly. The noise was so loud that they could hear it even inside the carriage. Prince George pressed his face against the window, amazed by the sea of people stretching as far as he could see. He had never seen so many people in one place before. Some had painted the British flag on their faces, others wore funny hats with crowns on them, and many held up signs with messages for the royal family. "Look at all these people, Mummy," Charlotte said excitedly, pointing to a group of children who were jumping up and down when they saw the carriage approaching. "They have all come to celebrate Grandpa's special day," Catherine explained, smiling as she watched her daughter's excitement. The carriage moved very slowly because there were so many people in the streets. Police officers on horses rode alongside them, making sure everyone stayed safe. William could see that some people had been waiting there since very early in the morning. Many had brought folding chairs and picnic baskets, turning the wait into a street party. As they got closer to Westminster Abbey, William made a decision that would surprise everyone. He knocked on the glass partition that separated them from their driver and security team. "Stop the carriage here," he said firmly. "We are going to walk the rest of the way." Catherine looked at him with surprise. This was not part of the plan they had discussed. Walking among the crowds was not something that had been arranged with security. But when she saw the determination in her husband's eyes, she understood. Today was about connecting with the people, not just following protocol. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly. "Yes," William replied. "The people have come here to be part of this day. We should be with them." The security team was immediately alerted to the change in plans. They had to quickly adjust their positions to protect the family during this unexpected walk. The carriage came to a stop about half a mile from Westminster Abbey. When the carriage door opened and William stepped out first, the crowd erupted in amazement. Nobody had expected to see the royal family this close. People started screaming with joy and pushing forward to get a better look, but the police barriers kept everyone at a safe distance. William helped Catherine down from the carriage, and then each of the children. The noise from the crowd became even louder when they saw Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Cameras flashed everywhere as people tried to capture this incredible moment. "Hold my hand tight," Catherine told Charlotte, while William took George's hand and picked up Louis in his arms. As they began walking, the crowd went wild with excitement. People were crying with joy. Others were laughing and calling out to the children. Some shouted, "We love you," and "God save the King," over and over again. Prince Louis, perched high on his father's shoulders, waved enthusiastically at everyone he saw. His innocent smile and excited gestures made the crowd fall in love with him instantly. Many people lowered their phones just to enjoy watching the little prince's genuine reactions. Princess Charlotte walked gracefully beside her mother, waving politely to the crowd just like she had been taught. She seemed completely comfortable with all the attention and even stopped a few times to point at particularly colorful signs or costumes in the crowd. Prince George walked with the serious dignity expected of a future king, but his eyes sparkled with wonder at the incredible scene around him. He squeezed his father's hand tighter whenever the crowd cheered particularly loudly. The walk that had not been planned became the most talked about moment of the entire coronation day. Television cameras from around the world focused on this spontaneous decision that showed the royal family as accessible and connected to ordinary people. As they moved slowly through the crowds, Catherine and William smiled and waved, stopping occasionally when someone called out a particularly sweet message. The joy on people's faces was contagious, and even the most serious security officers found themselves smiling at the children's natural charm and the crowd's overwhelming happiness. As soon as the first person in the crowd took a photo of the royal family walking, something amazing happened. Within seconds, hundreds of phones were held high in the air, all trying to capture this incredible moment. The clicking sounds of cameras mixed with the cheers and shouts from the excited crowd. Mrs. Sarah Johnson from Manchester had been waiting since 4 in the morning with her 2 young daughters. When she saw Prince William carrying little Prince Louis while walking so close to them, tears rolled down her face. She quickly grabbed her phone and started recording a video. "I cannot believe this is happening," she whispered to her friends standing next to her. "They are right here, walking with us like a normal family." All around London and across the world, people glued to their television screens were witnessing something they had never seen before. The BBC news presenter struggled to find the right words to describe what was happening. She kept saying, "This is absolutely extraordinary, and in all my years of covering royal events, I have never seen anything like this." Social media platforms immediately went crazy. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok were flooded with photos and videos of the royal family's walk. People who were not even interested in the royal family suddenly found themselves sharing and commenting on the images. A young man named James, who worked in a coffee shop in Liverpool, posted a video on TikTok with the caption, "When did the royals become this cool?" His video got over 1 million views in just 2 hours. Television news channels around the world interrupted their regular programs to show live footage of the walk. In New York, CNN's anchor said, "We are witnessing history being made in London right now." In Paris, French television showed the scenes with French reporters explaining how unusual this was for the British royal family. People watching from their homes called their friends and family members to make sure they were seeing what was happening. Phone networks reported unusually high call volumes, as everyone wanted to share this moment with someone. An elderly lady named Margaret Thompson, who had followed the royal family for over 60 years, sat in her armchair in Scotland, watching the coverage on television. She had seen many royal events in her lifetime, but this made her feel something different. "They look like real people," she said to her daughter who was visiting. "Not like untouchable royals, but like parents taking their children for a walk." International newspapers that had already printed their morning editions scrambled to create new front pages. The original headlines about the coronation ceremony were quickly replaced with headlines about the unexpected walk. News websites crashed because too many people were trying to visit them at the same time. The official royal family website received so many visitors that it became very slow to load. Professional photographers who had been positioned along the route for the ceremony found themselves in the perfect place to capture history in the making. Their photos would later become some of the most famous images of the 21st century. American tourists who had saved money for years to travel to London for the coronation could not believe their luck. Many of them had only hoped to catch a glimpse of the royal carriage from far away. Instead, they found themselves just a few feet away from the future King and Queen of England. Mary and Robert Williams from Texas had brought their teenage daughter Emily on this trip as a graduation present. Emily, who usually spent her time on social media and showed little interest in royal news, stood with her mouth open in amazement. "Mom, this is actually really cool," she admitted, quickly posting photos to her Instagram story. Back in the crowd, people began singing "God Save the King" spontaneously. The song spread through the crowd like a wave, creating a powerful moment of unity and celebration. The royal protection officers, who had trained for many different scenarios, found themselves in a situation they had never prepared for. They adapted quickly, forming a protective circle around the family, while allowing the public to enjoy this special moment. Radio stations across Britain interrupted their music to provide live commentary on the walk. Callers flooded the phone lines, wanting to share their excitement about what they were seeing on television or experiencing in person if they were lucky enough to be in London. As the royal family continued their walk through the crowded streets, each of the 3 children showed their own special personality that made people fall in love with them even more. The crowd watched in delight as the young royals acted like the children they truly were, despite wearing their fancy ceremonial clothes. Prince George, walking tall beside his father, displayed the serious behavior expected from a future king. But he was still an 8-year-old boy at heart. Every few steps, he would look up at William with wide eyes, as if asking, "Is this really happening?" When a group of school children in the crowd started chanting his name, George smiled shyly and gave them a small wave. His careful, polite gestures showed how well his parents had taught him about his royal duties. One moment that melted hearts happened when George noticed an elderly man in a wheelchair near the front of the crowd. The old man was a military veteran wearing his medals proudly on his jacket. Without being told, George walked over with his father and shook the man's hand. The veteran's eyes filled with tears as he saluted the young prince. This simple act of kindness showed that George understood what it meant to serve others. Princess Charlotte proved to be a natural star during the walk. Her bright smile never left her face as she waved enthusiastically to everyone she saw. Unlike her older brother's careful waves, Charlotte's gestures were full of joy and energy. She seemed to feed off the crowd's excitement, becoming more animated with each cheer she heard. When a little girl in the crowd, about the same age as Charlotte, held up a drawing she had made of the princess, Charlotte stopped walking and asked her mother if she could see it. Catherine smiled and nodded. Charlotte carefully took the drawing and examined it closely, then gave the little girl the biggest smile and said, "Thank you so much. This is beautiful." The little girl burst into happy tears, and her parents could not stop taking pictures. Charlotte's natural ability to connect with other children surprised even the experienced royal reporters who had been covering royal events for decades. Charlotte also showed her helpful nature during the walk. When she noticed that her little brother Louis was getting tired, she whispered something to her mother and then took Louis's hand to help him walk. This sweet gesture between the siblings made viewers around the world smile and reminded everyone that despite their royal titles, they were still just children who looked out for each other. 5-year-old Prince Louis provided the most entertaining moments of the entire walk. His reactions to everything around him were completely genuine and unfiltered. When the crowd cheered loudly, Louis would cheer back. When people waved flags, he tried to grab them from his father's shoulders. His innocent excitement was contagious. At one point, Louis spotted a man dressed up as a royal guard with a tall, fuzzy hat. Louis pointed at him and shouted loudly enough for nearby people to hear, "Look, Daddy, he has the same hat as the guards at home." William laughed, and the crowd around them burst into laughter too. When Louis grew tired of walking, William effortlessly lifted him onto his shoulders. From up there, Louis had the best view of everything. He waved to people in the windows of buildings, pointed at colorful decorations, and even tried to count all the flags he could see. His running commentary, though mostly whispered to his father, occasionally reached the microphones of nearby reporters. The sight of William carrying his youngest son while still maintaining his royal dignity touched people deeply. Many parents in the crowd saw themselves in that moment, remembering times when they had carried their own tired children. What made the children's behavior so special was how natural and unrehearsed it all seemed. They had not been trained for this specific situation because no one had planned for them to walk through the crowds. Their genuine reactions and personalities shone through, creating authentic moments that no amount of royal protocol could have created. By the time they were halfway to Westminster Abbey, the 3 young royals had already won the hearts of everyone watching. Their individual personalities, combined with their obvious love for each other and their parents, painted a picture of a modern royal family that people could relate to and admire. Among the crowd watching the royal family's unprecedented walk stood Dr. Amanda Richards, a historian who had spent 30 years studying the British monarchy. As she watched William and Catherine strolling hand in hand with their children, she knew she was witnessing something that would change royal history forever. "This has never happened before," she whispered to her colleague standing beside her. "No royal family has ever walked among the people like this during such an important ceremony." Dr. Richards thought about all the coronations she had studied throughout British history. King George VI's coronation had been formal and distant. Queen Elizabeth II's coronation in 1953 had been grand, but followed strict protocol, where the royal family remained separated from the public. Even during royal weddings and jubilees, there was always a careful distance maintained between the royals and ordinary people. But here was Prince William, the future king, making a decision that broke hundreds of years of tradition. He was choosing to be with his people rather than above them. This simple act of walking was actually a revolutionary moment in the long story of the British monarchy. The security team around the family had to completely change their usual methods. Normally, they could predict every movement and control every situation during royal events. But this walk was different. They had to protect the family while allowing them to interact freely with thousands of excited people. It was like trying to solve a puzzle that kept changing every few seconds. Commander James Harrison, head of Royal Protection, spoke quietly into his radio as they walked. All units, maintain flexible perimeter. Allow natural interaction but stay alert. His team moved like dancers around the family, creating an invisible shield that most people in the crowd did not even notice. The police officers on duty were amazed at how well the crowd behaved. Despite the excitement and the pushing to get closer, people remained respectful and followed the barriers. It seemed like everyone understood they were part of something special and did not want to ruin it. Royal experts watching from around the world immediately understood the significance of what was happening. Professor Michael Thompson from Oxford University, speaking live on television, explained to viewers what they were seeing. "This walk represents a new kind of monarchy," he said. "William and Catherine are showing that they understand the royal family must evolve to survive. They are choosing accessibility over isolation, connection over distance." The decision to walk also showed how confident William and Catherine were in their relationship with the British people. They were not afraid to be close to their subjects because they trusted that the public loved and supported them. This trust was being repaid with the overwhelming positive reaction from the crowds. Queen Elizabeth II, watching the coverage from a private room, smiled as she saw her grandson and his family connecting so naturally with the people. She had spent her entire 70-year reign trying to modernize the monarchy while respecting its traditions. Seeing William and Catherine take this bold step made her proud of how the institution was evolving. The Archbishop of Canterbury, waiting at Westminster Abbey, watched the coverage on a small television in his preparation room. He realized that by the time the family arrived for the coronation ceremony, the entire mood of the day would be different from what anyone had expected. This walk was transforming a formal religious ceremony into a celebration that belonged to everyone. Young royals from other countries were also watching and taking notes. Crown Prince Frederick of Denmark called his wife to discuss what they were seeing. "Look at how the British people are responding," he said. "Maybe we should consider doing something similar at our next public event." The walk was teaching the children important lessons about their future roles. They were learning that being royal was not about being separate from people, but about serving them and connecting with them. Prince George would remember this day when he became king, understanding that his subjects were not just people to rule over, but people to walk among and care for. By choosing to walk, William and Catherine were writing a new chapter in the royal handbook. They were showing that in the modern world, successful monarchs needed to be approachable, genuine, and willing to break with tradition when it served a greater purpose. In newsrooms around the world, editors and producers scrambled to completely change their coverage plans. The royal family's unexpected walk had become the biggest story of the day, even bigger than the coronation ceremony itself. Television stations that had planned to show the carriage procession quietly and then focus on the church service suddenly found themselves with the most exciting royal story in decades. At CNN headquarters in New York, anchor Anderson Cooper was pulled from his regular program to provide live coverage of the walk. "We are interrupting our scheduled programming to bring you extraordinary scenes from London," he announced to millions of American viewers. The British royal family is doing something that has never been done before in modern royal history. The CNN newsroom became a flurry of activity as producers called royal experts from around the world to provide instant analysis. Phone calls were made to historians in London, royal correspondents in Canada, and monarchy experts in Australia. Everyone wanted to understand and explain what they were witnessing. In Japan, television networks that normally would not cover British royal events decided to broadcast the walk live. Japanese viewers, fascinated by the orderly yet emotional crowd reaction, watched in amazement as the young royal children interacted so naturally with the public. The BBC newsroom in London was in controlled chaos. Their royal correspondent, who had covered royal events for 20 years, kept shaking his head in disbelief as he provided live commentary. "I have never seen anything like this in my entire career," he repeated several times. "This is completely unprecedented." Sky News quickly assembled a panel of experts to discuss what they were seeing. Royal biographer Angela Thornton said live on air, "This single walk is doing more for the monarchy's popularity than years of carefully planned public relations campaigns." In Australia, morning television shows interrupted their regular programs to show the live footage from London. Australian viewers, many of whom had complex feelings about the monarchy, found themselves surprisingly moved by the scene of the young family walking among ordinary people. Social media managers at major news organizations worked frantically to keep up with the flood of content. The Twitter accounts of BBC News, CNN, Reuters, and other major outlets posted new photos and videos every few minutes. Their posts were being shared and liked faster than they could count. In France, television presenter Marie Dubois tried to explain to her viewers why this was so significant. In French history, when royals walked among the people, it often ended badly, she said with a smile. But in Britain today, it seems to be creating nothing but joy and connection. Russian television, which rarely covered British royal news positively, found themselves showing the walk with surprisingly warm commentary. Even countries that did not have monarchies were fascinated by the genuine emotion and excitement of the crowds. The photographs being taken during the walk were instantly becoming iconic. Professional photographers knew they were capturing images that would be published in history books for generations to come. The photo of William carrying Prince Louis on his shoulders, while Catherine held Charlotte's hand, became one of the most shared images in social media history. News websites around the world experienced their highest traffic numbers of the year as people rushed to see the latest photos and videos from the walk. The official British royal family website crashed 3 times due to overwhelming demand. Magazine editors who had already planned their coronation covers called emergency meetings. Vogue, Time, People, and dozens of other publications decided to completely redesign their covers to feature the walk instead of formal coronation portraits. The Italian fashion magazine that had planned to focus on Catherine's coronation outfit instead chose to highlight how elegant and approachable she looked while walking hand in hand with her children. International news agencies like Reuters and Associated Press sent their top photographers to position themselves along the route. Their images would be sold to newspapers and magazines around the world within hours. The walk was being broadcast live in over 100 countries. Television producers estimated that more people were watching this spontaneous walk than had originally planned to watch the coronation ceremony itself. In newsrooms across America, Asia, and Europe, journalists were already writing the headlines that would appear in newspapers the next morning. Words like historic, unprecedented, and heartwarming appeared in almost every story being prepared about the royal family's amazing day. As the royal family approached Westminster Abbey, the ancient building seemed to welcome them home. The Gothic towers reached high into the cloudy London sky, and the old stone walls held the memories of 1,000 years of history. Kings and queens had been crowned here for centuries, and now King Charles II would join that long line of monarchs. The crowd around the Abbey was different from the excited groups along the walking route. These people had special tickets to be close to the church. Many wore formal clothing and had arrived very early in the morning to get the best spots. But when they saw the family walking toward them instead of arriving in their carriage, even these more reserved spectators broke into excited cheers. Prince Louis, still perched on his father's shoulders, pointed at the tall spires of the Abbey and asked in a voice loud enough for nearby people to hear, "Is that where Grandpa is getting his crown?" William smiled and nodded, causing the crowd to chuckle at the innocent question. The Abbey's bells began to ring as the family drew closer. The sound was deep and rich, echoing off the surrounding buildings and mixing with the cheers of the people. Catherine pulled her wrap closer around her shoulders as a cool breeze swept through the courtyard in front of the great church. Charlotte looked up at the magnificent building with wide eyes. She had been to Westminster Abbey before for family events, but today it seemed even grander and more important. The flags flying from the towers, the red carpet leading to the entrance, and the crowds of people made everything feel magical. "Mummy, look how beautiful it is," she whispered, squeezing Catherine's hand tightly. At the grand entrance of the abbey, a group of important religious leaders waited to greet them. The Archbishop of Canterbury stood at the front, wearing his special golden robes for the coronation. His smile was warm and genuine as he watched the family approach on foot rather than by carriage. Behind him stood bishops and other church officials from around Britain and the Commonwealth countries. They had been waiting in their formal positions for the royal family to arrive, but none of them seemed bothered by the change in plans. In fact, many of them looked pleased to see such a joyful end to the walk. As William and Catherine reached the steps of the abbey, they paused for a moment to look back at the incredible crowd that had followed their progress. The street behind them was filled with people as far as they could see, all waving and cheering. Many held up phones and cameras to capture this final moment of the walk. George straightened his shoulders and checked that his ceremonial outfit was still neat and tidy. Even though he was only 8 years old, he understood that they were about to enter a very important ceremony. He would need to sit quietly and behave properly while his grandfather became king. William gently lowered Louis from his shoulders and straightened the little boy's clothes. Louis had enjoyed the walk so much that he seemed disappointed it was over. He looked around at all the grand decorations and the formally dressed people with curiosity. The Archbishop of Canterbury stepped forward to greet them personally. "Your Royal Highnesses, welcome to Westminster Abbey," he said with a bow. What a wonderful way to arrive on this historic day. Catherine smoothed down Charlotte's hair and checked that her dress was still perfect after the walk. Despite all the excitement and movement through the crowds, the children still looked presentable for the solemn ceremony ahead. The family took one last look at the cheering crowd before turning toward the abbey's entrance. The heavy wooden doors stood open, and inside they could see the warm glow of hundreds of candles and the rich colors of stained glass windows. As they climbed the steps together, still holding hands, they could hear the crowd behind them beginning to sing "God Save the King" once again. The song followed them as they approached the threshold of the ancient church, where history would be made and a new era would begin. The spontaneous walk that had brought them closer to the people was ending, but the memory of this incredible journey would stay with everyone who witnessed it for the rest of their lives. In the days following the coronation, newspapers around Britain woke up to something they had not seen in years. Their phone lines were buzzing with calls from readers who wanted to talk about the royal family's walk. Most of the callers were not complaining or criticizing. Instead, they were praising what they had witnessed. The Sun newspaper received over 5,000 calls and emails in just 2 days. Most of the messages said the same thing. "That walk made me proud to be British again," wrote Jennifer Mills from Birmingham. "For the first time in years, I felt connected to the royal family." Opinion polls conducted by major British newspapers showed remarkable results. 92% of people who saw the walk said it made them feel more positive about the monarchy. Even people who had never cared much about royal events found themselves talking about William, Catherine, and the children. At the local pub in the village of Little Wickham, conversations had been dominated by talk of the royal walk for 3 nights in a row. "I never thought I would say this," said Bill Henderson, a retired factory worker who had always been skeptical about the royals. "But those kids seem like real people, not like fancy toffs living in a bubble." The BBC conducted interviews with people across the country to gauge public reaction. In Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, the response was equally positive. "They showed us that they are part of our community," said Maria Gonzalez from Cardiff. "The way Prince Louis waved at everyone, and how Princess Charlotte talked to that little girl, it was genuine." Social media continued to buzz weeks after the event. Instagram accounts dedicated to the royal family gained hundreds of thousands of new followers. TikTok videos of the children's sweet moments during the walk were viewed millions of times. Young people who had never shown interest in the monarchy were sharing and commenting on royal content. University students interviewed by The Guardian newspaper expressed surprise at their own reactions. "I expected to find it boring and outdated," said 20-year-old Emma Thompson from Manchester University. But seeing them walk with their kids like any normal family made me think differently about what the royals actually do. The walk had a particularly strong impact on parents across Britain. Many saw themselves in William and Catherine as they managed their 3 children during such a public and important event. Parent bloggers wrote posts about how refreshing it was to see royal children acting like real kids instead of perfect little robots. Princess Charlotte, helping her little brother walk, was exactly what my daughter does with her younger brother, wrote Sarah Foster on her popular parenting blog. It showed they are raising their children with the same values we try to teach our own kids. Even critics of the monarchy found it difficult to find fault with the walk. Republican movement leaders admitted privately that the event had made their job more challenging. It's harder to argue against an institution when its members seem so approachable and normal. One campaign organizer confessed anonymously. The positive reaction extended to the Commonwealth countries. In Australia, where debates about removing the monarchy have been growing louder, polls showed a significant increase in support for keeping royal ties. The walk showed a modern monarchy that understands its people, said Professor David Walsh from Sydney University. Canadian television conducted special programs examining public reaction to the walk. Phone-in shows received call after call from listeners expressing how moved they had been by the family's decision to walk among the people. Traditional supporters of the monarchy were delighted by the public response. The Monarchist League reported a surge in new memberships following the coronation. People want to be part of something that brings the country together like this, explained their chairman. Letters poured into Kensington Palace from all over the world. Children sent drawings of the royal family walking, and parents wrote to thank William and Catherine for showing their children that being important did not mean being distant from others. The overwhelming positive reaction proved that the decision to walk had been exactly what the country needed. In a time when people often felt divided about many issues, the royal family had provided a moment of unity and shared joy that crossed all boundaries. 5 years later, the effects of that historic coronation walk were still being felt throughout the British monarchy and beyond. Royal protocol had been quietly but permanently changed to include more opportunities for the family to interact directly with the public during important events. The royal household staff had created new guidelines that encouraged spontaneous public engagement while maintaining proper security. Events that once would have been strictly formal now included planned moments for the royal family to walk among crowds and meet people face to face. Prince George, now 13 years old, often reflected on that special day. During his royal training sessions, where he learned about his future responsibilities, he frequently mentioned the coronation walk. "I want to be the kind of king who walks with people, not just waves from a distance," he told his tutors. His confidence in public had grown tremendously since that day. When he attended school events or charity functions, George naturally sought out conversations with different people. His teachers noted that he seemed genuinely interested in learning about others' lives and experiences. Princess Charlotte, at 12, had developed into a natural ambassador for the royal family. She often accompanied her parents on official visits, and her warm personality made her incredibly popular with young people. Youth organizations across Britain regularly requested her presence at their events because she connected so easily with children her own age. Charlotte often spoke about wanting to use her position to help others, particularly young people who felt left out or different. "That day when I was 7 taught me that being royal means being there for people," she explained during a school presentation about public service. Prince Louis, now 10, had become known for his infectious enthusiasm and genuine curiosity about the world around him. Though still young, he showed the same natural ability to connect with people that had charmed crowds during the coronation walk. His spontaneous comments and questions during public events often made headlines for their honesty and humor. William and Catherine looked back on their decision to walk as the moment that defined their approach to modern monarchy. In interviews years later, they spoke about how that spontaneous choice had shown them the power of genuine connection with the public. Their relationship with the British people had deepened significantly since that day. Public approval ratings for the couple remained consistently high, and they were often praised for making the monarchy feel relevant and accessible to younger generations. The Coronation Walk had also influenced other royal families around the world. Crown princes and princesses from Denmark, Sweden, and the Netherlands had all incorporated similar walkabouts into their own important ceremonies. The British example had shown that modern royalty could maintain dignity while being approachable. Royal biographers writing about King Charles II's reign always included a chapter about the Coronation Walk. Many argued that this single event had secured the future of the British monarchy by showing its ability to evolve with the times while maintaining its essential character. The famous photographs from that day now hung in the National Portrait Gallery in London. Millions of visitors stopped to look at the images of the young family walking hand in hand through the crowds. Tour guides always paused at these pictures to tell the story of how an unplanned decision became a defining moment. Children who had been in the crowd that day, now teenagers, often brought their own friends to see the portraits. They would point to the pictures and say proudly, "I was there when this happened. I saw them walk right past me." The walk had become part of British cultural memory, referenced in songs, poems, and films about the royal family. It represented a moment when ancient tradition met modern values, creating something new and meaningful. Perhaps most importantly, the Coronation Walk had shown three young children that their future roles did not have to separate them from the people they would serve. Instead, it had taught them that true leadership came from walking alongside others, sharing in their joys, and understanding their lives. As the years passed, that lesson continued to shape how Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis approached their royal duties, ensuring that the spirit of connection and accessibility first shown on that remarkable day would continue into the next generation of the British monarchy.